Hi, guys. This is the story of my abusive mother-in-law and my useless husband who didn't even bother to protect me. I'll be using fake names in my story since I don't want to be identified. Sharing my story is one thing, but handling real-life drama is another, so I don't want anyone to find me. Let's say my name is Peyton, Grant is my husband, and Joanne is my mother-in-law. There's also my grandma Lily, who is the sole reason why I'm still alive today. Let me tell you from the beginning. Grant was more or less a good boyfriend to me. I was completely in love with him and ready to marry him, so when he proposed to me, I immediately said yes. But my life completely changed after that. Grant suddenly started to show lots of red flags. I discovered that he and his mother were extremely close, and his mother essentially controlled him. It was Joanne who first started to create problems. She was living with us and mooching off her son. One day, she just walked in with some papers and said, "Peyton, you need to come and sign these papers. The faster you do it, the better for you." "What are those papers, Joanne?" "This is an ironclad prenup that you both need to sign. It says that in case of a divorce, none of you can claim anything from each other. Sign it right now." "Wait a minute, did you just make a prenup without consulting us? This is really humiliating, Joanne. Why would you do that?" "I did this so you can't take my son to the cleaners in case of a divorce. You earn way less than him, and this house is his. We cannot trust you enough to try and take everything from him." "This is insane, Joanne. I am not some witch that you make me out to be. This is ridiculous. I won't sign a prenup just like that. I feel insulted. You should have talked to us about this." "Actually, I know about the prenup. It's not a big deal, Peyton. If you are really not with me for money, you should have no problem signing this." I was pretty taken aback at the fact that Joanne and Grant had a discussion, but didn't even tell me. No, I was not with Grant for money. I didn't earn much, but I had a big inheritance in store for me. I didn't tell Grant that yet. Grant and I fought for days, and Joanne regularly verbally insulted me for not signing the papers. After a while, I went to my grandma for help. She listened to everything I said and said, "Honey, are you sure you want to marry this man? I don't think he's the right one for you. You two aren't even married yet, and he's already making plans with his mother to corner you." "It's just this one problem, Grandma. I really love Grant, and he loves me too. I really can't imagine marrying someone else. He is a good man." "Well, if you have already made that decision, I would actually encourage you to sign the prenup. I'll send my lawyer to read through the terms, but I have a request to make. You should never mention that your grandparents are millionaires. I don't want them to know." "I haven't told them anything yet, Grandma. But why don't you want me to say it?" "I understand things better than you, Peyton. You're seeing them with rose-tinted glasses. Your grandfather and I worked hard to build this fortune. I don't want anyone to take advantage of you and steal your money." "Grandma, you don't have to worry about that. I won't tell them anything since you asked me not to. Besides, Grant is a good man, and he will never do that. If his mother becomes too much, I'm sure he'll protect his wife." I was wrong. Grant was a horrible man, and his mother was much worse than I knew. I gave in and signed the prenup, and later realized what a wise decision it was. As soon as we got married, Joanne started to abuse me regularly. Even after signing the prenup, she verbally and sometimes physically abused me. I'm too ashamed to speak of the things she did, but I will mention one incident. This incident is important because it was the turning point of my marriage. One day, when I was home after work, Joanne came storming into my room with a smirk on her face. She handed me a big bag of clothes and demanded that I wash them. I didn't protest because I was used to this behavior. I knew that if I refused to do it, she would tell Grant, and then the two would verbally abuse me. It was a routine. So I picked up the heavy bag even though it was hard for me. While I was going down the hall, Joanne tripped me, and I fell. I hurt my ankle and screamed out in pain. Joanne laughed at me and left. After putting an ice pack on my ankle, I called Grant. Grant, I fell down and hurt my ankle. Your mother tripped me today. I have taken her abuse for a long time now. You need to do something. She's crossed her limits. Don't make up lies about Mom, Peyton. She would never do something like that. You just want her out of the house and don't want to do chores. Stop lying and defaming my mom. I'm not lying, Grant. Please believe me. Don't waste my time, Peyton. Go back and do the chores my mom gave you. I don't want another complaint out of your mouth. Grant simply hung up on me. He never stood up for me and always acted like I was in the wrong. I didn't say anything because I didn't want him to leave, but this time I couldn't take it anymore. I just cracked. Actually, I was secretly seeing a therapist with the help of my grandma, so their abusive ways were becoming too much to handle. It was at this point that I knew I had to get out. What pissed me off even more was that Joanne sent me some nasty texts saying how I deserved what she did and that Grant would never speak against her. I was freaking mad. I made up my mind that I needed revenge. The opportunity showed up when later my grandma passed away. I was sad but relieved because she was in a lot of pain. I couldn't stand to see her in so much pain. I stayed strong, thinking that she had finally reunited with my granddad and was now free from pain. Grant didn't even help me when my grandma passed away. He didn't even show up to the funeral or anything, but he got to know that I received $250 million as an inheritance. Yes, they were that rich. Grant absolutely lost his mind with shock. He was being extra nice to me when we went home the next day. Another surprise awaited me. Joanne was at the foot of my bed, looking very sweetly at me. I was surprised to find her in my room, looking creepily at me. I honestly didn't know what to think of it. In my mind, I could see this coming. Still, watching my abusive mother-in-law change her face was starting to creep me out. I said, "What are you doing here, Joanne? No one told me you were coming today. Hell, why were you staring at me in my sleep?" "Oh, I came early so that I can help you with the chores. I made you tea, and it's right beside the bed. I know how much you love tea, so I ordered a special batch for you. You didn't answer why you were sitting in my room when I was sleeping. Honestly, Joanne, it is creepy as hell. I was trying to massage your feet, Peyton. I know you hurt your feet while carrying my laundry that day. Your feet must be so sore, so I thought maybe I could massage them for you. You literally tripped me that day, Joanne. How dare you show up and try to massage my feet? Don't you have any shame? No, you don't have to be so dramatic about that. It was an honest mistake. I didn't know you would fall or that the load was so heavy. I already massaged your foot and made up for it, didn't I? You think massaging my foot will make up for the way that you have abused me? You are insane, Joanne. Get out of my room. I don't want to see your face right now." "All right, I'll be in the kitchen making you breakfast. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I will take care of it. I will also make sure Grant has everything ready as well. You take your time and freshen up." Joanne said that sweetly and left with a skip in her step. Her shift in attitude was making my head spin. Even when I was lying down, I felt like she breached my privacy and was acting like a lunatic. Money can really make people do things, you know. Joanne is solid proof of it. Grant must have told her to avoid my inheritance, which prompted her to make this visit. A change of heart. But neither Grant nor Joanne knew that none of them would get their hands on my fortune. I had made sure of that. I got out of bed and got dressed in my best set of clothes. It was my day of revenge, and I wanted to look my best. My therapy was working very well, and I finally had the confidence to stand up for myself. I went down to the kitchen with my bag in tow. It had some important documents that I needed to send out today. I guess you can tell what I was about to do. I found Grant with Joanne in the kitchen. They both looked very happy and were whispering something to each other. When they saw me, their smiles just became 2 times wider. Grant drew the chair out for me while Joanne set about fixing me a plate. I said, "Why did you make breakfast today? I would have done it by myself. You didn't have to trouble yourself with it. Grant hates it when you do something in this house. What nonsense. I'm happy to do this for you, Peyton. It's not a big deal. Yes, it's just breakfast. My mom can do this for you. You don't have to worry about any kind of work from now on. Once we sell the house and buy a mansion, I'll look for a housekeeper. Till then, my mother can look after all the chores. I'll help her out too. You think buying my medicines is a waste of money, but suddenly hiring a housekeeper is cheap for you? Also, how do you plan to buy a mansion? Been robbing a bank recently? Don't be ridiculous. We have plenty of money to do everything now. You just got a huge inheritance from your grandmother. Yes, Grant is right. Finally, we are millionaires now. We don't have to worry about money anymore. Your inheritance would be enough to last us a lifetime. We can do whatever we want now. Yeah, I've been thinking about quitting my job. I was getting burnt out in this place anyway. Maybe we can take a vacation and have some fun. What do you say? I started to laugh very loudly at what they said. I couldn't believe my ears. It has been 1 day since I received my inheritance, and these two have already started to make plans. They really think that I would just hand them over the money and let them do what they want. 1 day of fake good behavior was supposed to wash away years of abuse that I suffered at the hands of my husband and mother-in-law. Joanne and Grant looked a little uncomfortable with my laughter and were trying to look away. Their own plans may have sounded just as ridiculous to them too, since they held on to the hope that I would magically forgive them. After laughing for a few seconds, I said, "My God, it's been like 1 day since I got my inheritance. And look how drastically you have changed your tunes. Money does make a difference, doesn't it? Let's not remember the old days now. We had no idea you had such good luck coming your way. We would have treated you better if we knew." Yeah, you shouldn't be hiding things from your husband and in-laws, Peyton. That was very sneaky of you. Anyway, what should we do with so much money? I was thinking of a house and a Caribbean vacation. Don't just say house. Say mansion or villa. We can even opt for a penthouse. That would suit our status better. We are millionaires after all. All my friends would be so jealous of me. I listened to their banter, and then casually took out the documents that I was hiding in my folder. Joanne and Grant looked expectantly at me as if I was giving them papers saying all the money was theirs now. But they were in for a shock. I held the papers in hand and said, "I would like to correct you there, guys. We are not millionaires. I am a millionaire now. The money is mine, and I got it as my inheritance. Yes, you did get the money, but we share everything. We are married after all, so you should be sharing your money with me. Yes, and as your mother-in-law and only surviving family right now, you should share the money with me as well. We are family after all. You are my daughter as much as Grant is my son. It's ironic how I have suddenly become your daughter, Joanne. Till about yesterday, I was just a witch your son married. Anyway, you shouldn't get so carried away. We won't be family anymore. Not that we were ever family anyway." "What do you mean, Peyton? I'm your mother-in-law, so I am family." "How would you be my mother-in-law when I won't be married to your son anymore? If Grant loses his husband's title, you'll be less than nothing to me." "What is the meaning of this, Peyton? Why won't I be your husband anymore? What is going on?" "Well, I have filed for divorce. I did it the day after my grandma died. I won't be staying with you anymore, Grant. You're a terrible husband and don't deserve to be one." Saying that, I threw the divorce papers on the table. Grant and Joanne both read the papers to check if I was speaking the truth. When they read through the documents, their eyes shot up to the sky. They looked at the papers in disbelief, and then gave each other worried glances. I guess they didn't think I would be capable of filing for divorce. They said, "What is this, Peyton? Why have you filed for divorce? This doesn't make any sense. You think I'm weak enough to be stuck in an abusive marriage for the rest of my life? Why are you surprised, Grant? I told you this was coming. I told you the very day Joanne tripped me. My God, why are you still stuck in the past? I have apologized for it. Plus, It has happened already, and I can't change that. You need to be a little forgiving. This is not a big enough problem to warrant a divorce. Mom has already made amends for that. So, Joanne, you confess to tripping me, and all you do is tell me to get over it? Get this into your head, guys. I am divorcing you, and you won't get a cent of my inheritance. I can't believe I fell in love with such a vile man like you, Grant. I'm ashamed I tried my best to impress a monster like you, Joanne. But this abuse ends now. We are definitely getting a divorce, and we can do this the simple way or the difficult way. Suddenly, Grant and Joanne looked very pissed at me. I guess they didn't like the fact that I called them out on their behavior. They knew that since I filed for divorce already, I was dead serious. It wasn't a threat to make them do what I wanted. They were now willing to follow my wishes anyway, since I had lots of money. They said, "What's the use of divorcing me, Peyton? You have more money than me because your inheritance is our marital asset. I will get half of it anyway." "You might get half, but most of it will be spent on the lawyer." "God, did you forget about the prenup that you and your mother forcefully made me sign? I'm sure my dear mother-in-law can remind you of it. She was adamant we sign a prenup." It suddenly dawned on them that they had screwed themselves over back then. They had no idea that I would somehow become a millionaire. They wanted to protect themselves because they knew no sane woman would stay with them after their abuse. The prenup was a way for them to abuse people and not have any consequences for it. But this time, they just played themselves. They dug their own graves. They said, the prenup was a long time ago. I'll talk to a lawyer and find out what we can do. We won't let you walk away with all that money." "Yeah, you are doing this to threaten us. You can't do anything to us, Peyton. We will take your money and do what we please with it." "So, I take it that you will try and fight me in court?" "Oh, don't worry, Peyton. We will make this hard for you. You can't just decide on your own. I'll fight you in court. You can't get divorced without my signature. Remember that." "Really, Grant? So, you will intentionally make the process difficult for me?" "That's not an issue," I said firmly. "I'm prepared for everything. I have some ammo of my own." "What do you mean, Peyton?" Grant asked, suddenly wary. "Joanne, remember how you confessed to tripping me and abusing me in those texts? Well, I will use them to file a report to the cops. That would be a fun event, won't it?" "No, no, no, you won't do that. You can't." Joanne's face went pale. "Don't worry, Joanne. I have all the texts saved and sent to some of my friends. Trust me, I'm perfectly capable of reporting you to the police. I can also show how Grant knew and didn't do anything to save me. It'll be a downhill battle for you in divorce court." Joanne and Grant immediately started to hound me with apologies, realizing the gravity of the situation. They had underestimated me, thinking I had let go of the incident. But I was just biding my time, waiting for the right moment. I took the divorce papers and left the house. "I'll collect my things tomorrow," I said, heading for the door. Grant and Joanne tried to stop me. "Don't walk away from us, Peyton. Let's sit and have a conversation about it. We can deal with the situation like adults and not make any rash decisions." "Yeah, where will you go anyway?" "Let's talk about it," Joanne added, desperation in her voice. "I'm moving into my grandmother's house. It has already been transferred to my name. I will be living there and waiting for Grant to decide on the divorce. I'm taking the papers with me so that you can't damage them and make me file again. As for my things, I've taken pictures of everything. Don't even think about damaging or getting rid of anything." Ignoring their pleas, I walked out to where my friend was waiting in her car. We drove off, leaving Grant and Joanne standing at the door, staring after us. Once I was at my new place, I contacted a moving company to bring my things from the house. In the months that followed, Grant and Joanne did their best to try and change my mind. Grant talked to a lawyer who told him in no uncertain terms that the prenup was solid and he had no way out. After being threatened by me multiple times, Grant was forced to sign the divorce papers. He didn't want his mom in jail, and he knew I would never give him a chance again. Grant and Joanne are currently not talking to each other. Grant didn't take the divorce well and started to blame Joanne for causing problems between us. He believed Joanne was the reason he missed out on being a millionaire. After countless fights, he ended up kicking her out with nothing. Since Joanne lived off Grant's money, she was left homeless and without funds. Last I heard, she was in a homeless women's shelter, with no idea what to do with herself. I made sure everyone knew what horrible people Joanne and Grant are, so they have been isolated from people. No one really talks to them anymore. As for me, I'm enjoying my new life and casually watching the aftermath. I still stay at my grandmother's place since it holds sentimental value to me. From my inheritance, I have donated some money to women's help centers and plan on doing more for them. The rest of the money has been invested and secured for my future family. I still work at my old job since I don't want to sit idle. Life is good so far, and I'm hopeful I will meet someone who deserves me.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked. We could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike! What have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.